They asked me, why do you want this job? I was like, I need to be the best AE out there. I went from being an SDR to sales director in 4 years, and I 10x'd my salary. Spent 2 years there, and I got fired. And this is how I ended up in SaaS. When you're 20 and you have to go and interview someone who's running for president, I had nerves, massively.
You were a terrible manager.
Yeah.
Why did you say that?
Because I had no clue how to manage people. I'm working for you as much as you're working for me. No, I'm working for you as much. What? This is a story I told a lot because I'd been there. There's a generation of sellers that have never had this experience.
What was harder, being a rep, being an SDR, or moving into AE?
I don't know if I can answer this question. I cold called her every day for 6 months. And then one day she picked up. I was like, oh my God. So I've listened to 70 of your gone calls, and I can tell you that you're not a very good negotiator. We were making the best coffees on Bermondsey Street. I can tell you that.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, it's a fact. Make my dad proud. I was like, nah, I'm just going to party for a bit, if that's all right. I'm just going to...
Welcome to Sales Rewritten, the #1 podcast for sellers. I'm Alex Wood, and every week I sit down with people who are shaping this industry on their own terms. Today's guest is Coralie de Robert, and her story is perhaps unlike any other you will have heard. From interviewing politicians and reading the news on French radio, to selling coffee as a trader at London's famous Borough Market. Today, we talk about the links between journalism and sales, what not to do when you apply for a sales job, and how ChatGPT has seemingly changed the buying process forever. Welcome to the podcast. When someone asks you what you do for a living, how do you describe it?
Thanks for having me, first of all, Alex. It's great to be here. Well, the answer tends to change depending on who is asking. So if someone who knows a little bit about the industry is asking me, I would go with, I'm the director of account management at G2. Mm-hmm. If it's Christmas dinner in Yorkshire, then most likely I'll say sales, software sales. And then I leave it there and try to swiftly move on to something else.
And you say it depends on who you're talking to, but of course that answer also depended on what period of your career they might well be referring to. Because as I alluded in the intro, you are someone who has perhaps an unusual background getting into sales. So I want to start with where it all began, which is for you as a journalist.
When I was a kid, I used to watch this French series, which everybody in France would know, and especially if they're from my generation that grew up with. It used to be called C'est pas sorcier. It's not sorcery. It's a French saying that says it's pretty simple. And it was a show where you had two men. One was in this truck, which actually was a studio, but there was this idea that they was in a truck and going all around the country. Mm-hmm. That was explaining some concepts, some scientific things. Mm-hmm. And whilst the other one was a reporter, it was on the ground, and there were some specific subjects that they were looking into. It was so cool, and I loved it. And when I became a teenager, I actually became best mate with one of the journalists' son.
Right.
It was so cool. But also I remember sitting at their dinner table, because I was friends with the son, and him being mildly drunk and telling me about all of these exciting trips they was taking and giving me the behind the scenes. And I thought this was so cool. Like, surely this is the best job in the world. You're paid to go around, meet people, learn about stuff, travel. How exciting this is. So I thought, this sounds great. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go all around the world. I'm going to discover so many wonders. I'm going to learn about so many things. I'm naturally very curious. Mm-hmm. And then you just have to basically tell the story back about your adventures. That's sick. So I decided to go in journalism for that. And
that is the best way I think you can describe that career. Who else gets that opportunity to go to these amazing places, report on these amazing stories? I want to talk a little bit more about what you got to cover then. You worked in radio and you were working out of Paris.
I discovered all the different media. I'm quite lazy, so writing wasn't quite for me. We didn't have ChatGPT at the time either, so you actually had to write everything. And I loved radio because there's something quite exciting about being live, yet you're not completely being looked at. So you can still have a little bit of the excitement of, I need not to mess this up, and run a little bit on adrenaline, but also it has to be short and snappy, which is perfect when you don't like writing and you just want to go to the point. So I did some radio and worked for a company, a radio station called Radio Nova. Again, if any French people are listening to this podcast, most likely they will know about it. And I was doing the news in the morning at 6 a.m. I was opening the radio station, waking up at 3 a.m. It was such a unique time. There's something quite amazing about it. And I was also reporting. So one of the things I was reporting on was politics. And in 2012, when there was the presidential election in France, that was ultimately won by François Hollande, I was reporting. So I was going to all the meetings. And it was very exciting, very interesting.
Yeah, and it puts you in those situations, I think, where you have to be quite confident in yourself, even if perhaps internally you're thinking, looking around, there's a media scrum, there's high profile figures, and you're always, I think, thinking to yourself, should I be the one asking this question? And I found it teaches you to be resilient, and it teaches you to be confident in the way that you approach people.
Absolutely. There's so many transferable skills, so many. Asking the right questions so you can get the most important information. This is one of the key skills that you naturally think of. The natural curiosity that you have when you're a journalist, apply this to sales and it's going to give you an edge. And yes, just building up some confidence to go and approach anyone. When you're 20 and you have to go and interview someone who's running for presidential, it's I had nerves massively. And do you know what? I still have nerves today if I need to do a cold call.
I think that's a good sign, though. I really do. It's to be nervous about something, I don't think is inherently a bad thing. I think it shows you care, you're invested, and you want to do a good job. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And it's about, what do you do with that extra energy that you get? What do you do with that stress? Because if you manage to use it in the right way, again, an edge, that's what it can give you. You've got to put yourself within the situation that you're scared of in order to know how to deal with it and manage it. And I think journalism in that way builds that confidence and that ability to, even if you're scared of doing something, just go and do it and use your nerves in the right way.
Throw yourself into it and figure it out as you go. I used to get just as anxious about vox pops with people in the street, let alone these high profile figures. The idea that you'd have to approach someone and ask them about what's happening in the news, knowing full well that they don't want to be stopped. They do not want to speak to you and often assume you're trying to sell them something. And that's another little interesting parallel I find.
I actually love vox pop.
Really?
I say I have nerves. It's never comfortable to go and like force yourself into someone's bubble and ask them to answer any of your question and ask for their time. I'm less nervous though, obviously, with this type of situation. In some way, I actually enjoy it quite a lot. After being a journalist, when I moved to London, I actually worked on markets and I was selling coffee. I love working markets. I absolutely adore it. Even today, there's nothing that makes me happier than being in a conference or having a booth or just stopping people, like pitching, like a bit of a chit chat.
So the hustle and bustle is your spot. That's where you want to be.
Yeah, I get super energized from it. I don't know, all of a sudden, jokes are flowing, charm is on, and I don't know, I get really, really super excited. I came back from SaaS Talk in Dublin a few weeks ago, and I crashed for 3 days after that, but for 2 days, despite very little sleep and a lot of Guinness, I was feeling on top of the world.
Other stouts available, by the way, unless, of course, Guinness want to sponsor this podcast in some shape or form. But tell us about how you took the chance to move to London then, and what was the opportunity at that time? Why did you want to make the move? And what was it like living in London in the UK as opposed to Paris?
So as beautiful, enriching and exciting journalism is, it's a very precarious job and it doesn't pay. and I quite like money. So I ended up
I
doing
think most people do, to be fair. Just yeah,
it's quite nice. I ended up doing a business school, and as part of my master degrees in that business school, I had to go abroad and do an internship. And I still really enjoyed journalism at this point and still had some skills. And there's this radio in London that is called French Radio London, which is a radio specifically targeting the French community in the UK. And they were doing internships, and I could do what I liked the most, which was journalism, but also I could sell. So actually what I did during my internship was to create a product that I could produce and sell. So it was a 3 minutes podcast where I interviewed some companies that were looking to talk to the French community in London because they were the target market. And they were sponsoring, basically. So I was interviewing them, but they were sponsoring for it to be broadcasted, and also there was an entire communication thing that went on the back of it. So I created a product, produced a product, and I sold it.
Wow.
And this was my first stab at proper prospecting. I had a spreadsheet. I found all of the companies in the UK that I thought would be interested in the French community, and then I had a system with letters that was like: A, it's a prospect, I haven't contacted them. B, contacted, no response. C, got a first response. D, so basically your sales stages.
Yes.
With letters in a spreadsheet. And it was fun. I did that for 3 months, and I thought I'd be here for 3 months in the UK, but it's been 12 years.
I mean, that just goes to show, doesn't it, the hold, I think, at a city like London, if you can find your place here, it'll keep you. I have to explore the this concept of editorial and sort of sponsored and that sort of mishmash that you came up with, which is quite an ingenious thing for someone who's on an internship to come to the table for. And it sounds like it really took off.
I mean, I think we made a whole $2,000 over 3 months, which is not, I don't know if I would call it taking off, but it was a radio with very, very little means.
Yes.
And it was actually pretty decent, especially when you're thinking about inflation. 12 years ago, $2,000 is about 200,000 today.
There you go. Now, that's how you spin it. That's how you tell the story. Just apply the inflation rate. But if maybe, okay, financially for the station, it wasn't huge numbers, let's say. You talk about having your spreadsheet, you know, your system in place, pitching these potential clients, having almost like sequences ready-made for how this process is going to play out. To what extent were you sort of flying here without really any valid, real experience?
I did not have any experience. I did work a little bit in TV production where I had to find people to testify. So it was like a testimony type of production, like telling people about my life with 7 kids. And then you go and need to find people with 7 kids in France that are willing to speak. So I had this kind of already in TV production, this idea of calling. I was calling all day. I was calling when we couldn't find people, when we didn't have anyone inbound, we'd call hairdressers.
Yep.
Because people go to the hairdresser and they talk. And we're like, do you have anyone? Did not have any sales training until I got into SaaS sales. I had some people around me that were like, here's a spreadsheet. This is how you should do it. Go. And then I would just adapt, iterate, figure out the best way to do it, put systems in place. But when I ended up working at Sales Loft, which is a sales cadencing tool, this is a story I told a lot because I'd been there. I'd been, scrapping around with spreadsheets and color coding and needing to remind myself how many times I had emailed someone or called or not, to moving to systems that we hopefully all know in the SaaS world today that are very well thought out to be super productive and not forget about anything. And it's, I think I'm struggling recruiting sometimes because I think there's a generation of sellers that have never had this experience that is, crafty in a way. And yet don't really understand how good they have it today.
At what point then you go from pitching this to your French community to selling coffee at London's Borough Market. But I want us to get there. So take us on that journey, and how, when, where did that transition happen?
So this was an internship. I went traveling for a bit after this. I went in South America and traveled for a bit. And when I came back with my master's, I obviously was expected to just go and I actually have a master's in marketing, to go and do some marketing in the big company, make my dad proud. I was like, nah, I'm just going to party for a bit, if that's all right. I'm just going to. And I was 24, top of the world, in love. I was like, no, this is cool. This is London. Everything's exciting. I'm gonna go and sell coffee on Borough Market, and then do double or triple shifts, because after this I would go and work in a restaurant, and then sometimes, go do shifts in a pub, get paid £7 an hour, cash in hands most of the time, just so I could make ends meet and just, have like no pressure whatsoever. And I really like this, but I'm actually quite ambitious. So quite quickly, that company I was working for called Good Beans, that was doing cold brew coffee, that was selling on Borough Market. They were also selling cold brew coffee to a patisserie and coffee shop on Bermondsey Street. And the lady who owned that coffee shop was looking for a manager, and she poached me. So then I went on to selling patisseries and coffee and having a team of staff that I was looking after. And I was a terrible manager at the time.
You were a terrible manager at the
Yeah.
time. Why did you say that?
Because I had no clue how to manage people. I just didn't know. I was just thinking about what matters to the place I'm working at. I was just doing rota and things like this, and being tough with people sometimes about, being on time, giving proper customer service and things. And I didn't value the human part of management, or the building relationship with the people that you work with first before, asking things of them. Like, I didn't value the fact that managing people needs to be a give-get, right? Like, you're going to get out of people as much as you give them. And this is something that I learned through the years of managing people, but also being managed, and reflecting on how do managers get the most out of me. So I think I was in the classic relationship of, I'm your boss, just do what I say, instead of being, no, I'm working for you as much as you're working for me.
But presumably those are things as a manager that you sometimes can only learn through making mistakes.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit black and white in the way that I was looking at things.
Quite rigid.
Quite rigid.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't invest in the relationship with the people, or in the people, enough for me to be able to earn the right to ask of them things. I just assumed that this is how it worked. And don't get me wrong, I think there are some industries and places where this is how it works. I just don't think that people are very happy there. With my future experiences after this coffee shop experience, I learned through mistakes, and I also learned through great managers that I had, and also less great managers that I had.
Yes.
How you can actually think about managing people in a different way, how you can motivate intrinsically people to reach their full potential and bring their best selves to work, instead of the pure external factors that will make them do their job, such as, if you don't do your job, you're going to get fired, or you need to do your job well so you can get paid.
Yes.
My boss today talks about commitment versus compliance. Do you get people's commitment to do the job, or do you get them to comply? And we all sometimes move between them, right? There's some stuff that, I comply with it because I know it's part of my job.
Yes,
and, if I had the choice, I wouldn't do it.
Monday morning, I might just be a compliance kind of guy, but at some points during the week, you say you fully buy in, don't you? You're fully invested. I think that's true. I think that's a great example of what good management looks like.
Yeah, and I think in a way what I'm trying to get off my team now sometimes is commitment most of the time, and when it's going to be compliance, commitment that you're going to comply. which is a little twist. But yeah, I think I was just looking at people's compliance when I was a young 24-year-old manager in a coffee shop and never ever thought about commitment. Mind you, at the time also, they were 20 years old and they were serving coffee. So I'm not entirely sure how much commitment I would have got from them anyway.
What was it like working in that particular industry then, in terms of, whether it's hospitality or selling coffee beans and patisseries and food and beverages as a sector? It's a tough gig in some ways.
Well, we were making the best coffees on Bermondsey Street. I can tell you that.
Is that official? Is that a fact?
It's a fact.
You must also know some great coffee spots, by the way.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask you about that maybe for some bonus content off the back of this. But just talk about working in food and beverage then and selling in that space. What was that like? Because I suspect different to journalism, obviously, but also different to SaaS, which is where we'll come on to in a moment.
It's a tough gig. My husband is in the industry as well. He makes cider, and it's a really, really tough gig because your margins are so small, yet you need a lot of volume. So you don't really have anything that you can swing easily to make or break a month or a year. You just have to have volume of trade on a regular basis, because your cost of sale is quite high. Your cost of staff is really high. You need to make sure that you've got constant volume to reach your targets. I mean, it's so difficult. This company actually I work for went under.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Is it like how many pubs are closing every day?
It's awful. Yeah.
It's a really, really hard industry, especially now. And this is why you keep seeing a new coffee shop popping around the corner from your office whilst the other one just closed, because companies are really struggling to get a constant trade and make ends meet. And you've got this. You need to work in on as close as the line as you can all the time, because you can't afford wasting products, but you also can't afford not having enough products to sell.
Yeah.
So one thing I've learned from managing this shop at the time is the constant analysis of goods being sold and trends. So I could order. So we had a kitchen that was doing the patisseries, and that was, I needed to have enough patisseries of each sort to make sure that I could sell them on the day, but also not order too many, because if I wasted them, then the company wouldn't make any money. And so I had to do constant analysis of our sales so I could order from the kitchen what I needed.
Got it.
And that's something that kept even today, at G2, when we're doing expansion every quarter, I look at the product mix. What have we sold? At what price points? What was our average cycle length for each of the different products? How many customers did we sell that to? I'm looking at all of this so we can understand what is it that we need to focus on in order for us to be more successful. So that was a very interesting thing to learn back then.
You mentioned G2, and I feel like we're going to get there at some point in this conversation. I promise you.
Eventually.
Well, eventually, because I'm looking genuinely at your LinkedIn, your sort of CV and where you've stepped from, and going from Radio Nova at London Glass Blowing, which is where you were a sales and marketing manager. In 2018, you moved to Peakon.
Now Workday. Got acquired by Workday.
That's correct. Yeah. Moved over to Sales Loft, which you mentioned, and also just looking at job titles. You were an AE, you were a senior AE, you were a sales director at one point, you were a VP of sales at sales. You've done all of these roles. What took you then into the world of SaaS?
So after the coffee shop went under, I got poached by the shop next door, which is a gallery, because I really enjoyed the work I'd done in the coffee shop.
That's London Glass Blowing.
London Glass Blowing.
Got it.
I spent 2 years there and I got fired. And this is how I ended up in SaaS.
I was not expecting you to say that.
You need humbling moments in your career. And I think this was the perfect example of bad management, both from my managers and me as a manager. And although I had really good results, I had increased their average order value. So it was selling glass art, contemporary glass, and I was doing both B2C and B2B. But there was terrible communications. There were misunderstanding of what my job was versus the other people in the company. Everybody was a little bit uncomfortable at a certain point, and communications lines were broken. And despite the good results, it was clearly something had to change.
Right.
And yeah, my boss decided that best was for me to move on. And obviously, I didn't say that for a long time. When people asked me, I was like, I just hit a ceiling in B2C. So I thought I'd move on to B2B. But that's not the true story. That's the narrative that I put on it for a very long time because, it's hard. It's hard to say that, yeah, I was shit at my job at the end, so I got fired. But I did. And I was so broken. It really did, because I really did care and never got fired before. And all I was getting is being poached from places to places and having good results. And it was really, really difficult. And I was 28 years old by then, had 3 diplomas, masters from an international business school. And I went through this recruitment agency, and they got me through this, like this grad day where loads of companies come and assess. It feels weird, by the way, where you've got like potential employees sitting in front of you in silence.
Oh my gosh.
Sat down in a room filled with 18-year-olds. I'm like 10 years older than anyone else. But very humbled at this point. Remember, like I am
where you
I'm feeling like shit at this point. So I'm like, I'll take anything. And you stand up and you introduce yourself. And at the end of the day, basically, like it's like almost like a TV game show.
Oh my gosh.
Where you make it, and I made it to like the last 5 who get taken to the pub with potential employers, where they're now like hit on you massively.
This sounds a little odd that it's the pub that they take you for the last round.
So funny. And then your phone just rings every 2 minutes from these people that are trying to place you into their jobs. And this is how I ended up choosing Peakon as a place to be an SDR for the French market. Again, it was quite interesting because, again, I'm super humble at this point, really excited to get my life and my career back on track. But I'm also surrounded with incredibly clever, talented, amazing 20-year-olds, but still
20-year-olds.
And my boss is one of the best boss I had, actually, and exactly exactly what I needed at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is cool, but I'm behind on my career. I'm behind on my life story, and I need to catch up. I need to catch up fast. So I looked around me. I looked at the A's that were making like twice my salary. At that time, I was on 26K plus like 4K commission or whatever. And I was like, I'm going to become an AE as fast as I can. And the only way for me to do this is to be the absolute best in the team. So that's what I did. I just smashed my targets consistently, and I got promoted to an AE role within 18 months. And after that, I left to go to Sales Loft. I did 2 years. I was like, I'm going to be the best I can be at this job. And I remember when I interviewed for Sales Loft, they asked me, what do you want to do? Why do you want this job? I was like, I need to be the best AE out there, and the best I can be, the best of my abilities. And I think my ceiling's high. And is there any better place for me to become the best at selling than selling a sales tool to salespeople? Became the best seller in the company. And 2 years after, became a sales director. So my story then was, I might have been very,
non-linear back then.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
But then once I found my thing,
yes,
I'm going to go fast. I went from being an SDR to sales director in 4 years, and I 10x my salary in 4 years.
Wow. Okay, so look, that trajectory of, you join as a rep, you want to become an AE. What was pushing you to think, I want this now? Like, this is what I'm going to work towards.
Looking back, being fired is the best thing that happened to me, because that was the biggest drive. I had to build myself back up. I had to prove to myself that I can be good at a job, and that I had competencies and skills, and that I could be successful. And that was the biggest drive, is to prove to myself that I might have fucked it up, but I can do much better than that. And not only I'm going to do better than that, I'm going to be the best. And
what does that look like in practice then, I guess? So as an SDR at the time, what did you need to do, or what did you need to put in place to get ahead, to be better than your peers?
So many things, actually. So I'll try and condense it in a few things. I had to learn, and I really had to be in the mindset of, I've got to learn all of this. I've got to be very diligent.
You're
about my
all
learning
in,
curve. Yeah. So you're learning soft skills and hard skills. So hard skills was, using the tools properly, building talk track, learning about persona, learning about businesses, category you're operating into, verticals, all of this, like becoming an expert at the time. So Peakon is an employee engagement software, so it's a listening tool, which also, in a way, actually was fantastic because I learned about the 14 key drivers of engagement, what makes a good manager. So by actually learning how to sell an engagement tool for employees to make workplaces fantastic environments for people to thrive, I actually also learned the psychology behind being a good manager.
And that's fascinating. Yeah, that's so for your own professional development. It's kind of a win-win in that situation, isn't it? Yeah,
like looking back, I did not do that purposefully, but being at Peakon followed by Sales Loft, it's just like I sold HR best practices and then I sold sales best practices while actually selling and becoming a manager. So it was kind of perfect.
Yes.
And then learning the soft skills, resilience, first thing I've learned. And so my manager at the time, Chris Whitson, who is an SDR leader, manager, he teaches team today. I remember him saying, I still say it to my team today, persistence beats resistance. And he said it so many times to me. That really is
ingrained.
Yeah, I actually have it tattooed. No, I'm joking. And it did, and that's the resilience. It's just like just continue, just keep your head down, continue. You've sent 100 emails, you've done 100 cold calls, you still haven't booked the meeting. Persistence beats resistance. Just go for it. I still remember that woman, HR woman from Chanel, that I'm gonna break into Chanel, and I know she's the right person because I've done my research, I've spoken to other people. She's the one I need to speak to. I cold call her every day for 6 months. I remember every day at call, I'd have the receptionist. I'd be like, "Can I speak to this lady?" She's like, "Yeah, put me through." Rings, nothing happens. Emails, everything. And then it just became a thing that I wasn't even thinking about anymore. I just call. And then one day she picked up. I was like, "Oh my God,
you're here.
You exist."
You exist.
And I remember just getting up from my desk, and at the time we had the thing on our head. I just was pacing around. I was like, "Oh my God, this is my shot. I've got to make sure that I convert her into a meeting." And we did have the opportunity. We didn't sell to them in the end, but you
persisted and got yourself there.
And when I got her on the phone, she was actually very interested. It was amazing, and I knew exactly what to say because I'd been researching the account for so long. So that idea of just persist, keep going, just put your head down, but trust the process, just keep doing it. Was certainly one of the biggest thing I've learned. Consistency, resilience.
Let me ask you, what was harder, being a rep, being an SDR, or moving into AE?
I don't know if I can answer this question. Being an SDR is really, really hard. And I think it's good. I think you need to start with the hard bits. And I think it's almost like a natural selection process because you've got to develop a tough skin to be an AE. Because if you think rejection is hard as an SDR, wait until you work for hours on a deal just to lose it to a competitor, or for someone to decide that in the end they decided not to buy. You've got to build that resilience again. So it has to start hard. And if you don't have the resilience to go through the SDR job and build the right skills in order to move to the AE role, you won't have the tough skin that you need for the AE role.
Do you enjoy the responsibility in taking that on and now managing a team as a director of account management?
Well, I personally need it because, one, if I get too comfortable in a job, I get bored. So I need the right amount of pressure on a regular basis to keep me engaged. And two, I'm quite lazy. So if I don't have that sense of responsibility, again, there's the pressure bell curve. So basically, if you've got the right amount of pressure, get the right amount of output, input being pressure, output being performance or motivation. So if you don't apply enough pressure, you don't get a lot of performance. And then as the pressure comes up, you actually get performance, or actually it's the other way around. But and if you start applying too much pressure, then your performance or motivation goes down. So and each person will have a different pressure point at which they perform at the best.
Got it.
Mine needs to be fairly high.
Maybe that's another interesting parallel from your journalistic days, that you need this kind of hamster wheel of get on it and stay on it, and if you don't, you fall off, sort of thing.
There's very much that, and it's actually a very classic issue that I see with young sales reps. So as soon as they get a good quarter, their quarter after that is awful because they didn't realize that you need to keep the wheel turning, mate. Like, you've got to keep turning, and you've got to apply. And although we've got annual targets at the moment, right? At G2, yet I'm looking at every month's performance, and we are looking at the performance every month. And sometimes the reps are like, "Why? I'm on an annual target anyway." I'm like, because if you think you've got time to close, and if you don't put yourself in this constant pressure of delivering, you'll fail. This is just not good for you, for the business, for anyone. And yeah, I need that. I need to. I'm a yes person quite a lot, but and very often I'm like, why did I say I would do that? But then I actually realize I need to put myself in situations that I can't escape to get myself moving.
You're in a position now where obviously you are managing people, which you've talked about, but also recruiting.
Yeah.
Bringing people into the business. If I'm going for a job at G2 and you're on the panel, how do I win you over, and what should I avoid?
So what I'm looking for in candidates, again, I will separate it between hard skills and soft skills. And I'm actually more interested in soft skills quite often. Hard skills, I'll look at what's your sales training, what are you used to. So if I'm in my team, I've got all segments from more junior reps to very seniors. For a senior rep, the hard skill requirement goes up, but the soft skills requirements are pretty much the same all across the board. And so these are coachability, character, willingness and desire to learn, communication skills.
Yes.
We're in sales. It's the number one thing. It's really, it's hard. I've said no to people that were good in many other ways, but they were so bad at communicating and just getting the points across within the interview that was like, I
didn't get it.
And then I'm looking at some soft skills that I know work well with my management style. Can they take direct feedback? Can they be transparent and vulnerable? Self-aware and vulnerability are very important for me because I want to provide coaching and help and be really close to the reps. But I've got 9 people in my team, and I don't really have the bandwidth or the ability to be very proactive. And I don't want to force feedback on people either, or just, go ahead and do assessments and be like, so I've listened to 70 of your gone calls, and I can tell you that you're not a very good negotiator. Or I've been looking into these deals, before coming in today, and then I realized that you haven't got good decision criteria. I can't do this effectively with 9 people in my team. Yeah. So what I need is people that are going to be very self-aware. I know I'm not really good at doing discovery, and then vulnerable. Coralie, I need your help being better at discovery.
So ask for help. Recognize the problem, ask for help.
But it has to come together. Because if you're asking for help on things that you're not actually, needing, it's just going to waste everybody's time. Yeah. If you're self-aware but you're not capable of having the vulnerability to go and ask people around you, me or others, then we won't be able to solve the problem. So these are 2 things that I'm really keen on, and I ask questions around that. And it's quite fairly easy actually to identify within an interview.
You can spot those things in the way they convey, in tasks you've asked them to do, or
a very easy question is what makes you good at your job? What's your superpower? And you want them to tell you what they're good at, and you can usually see whether or not they're bullshitting fairly easily. And the next question: what is it that you need to be better at, or what trips you up? Why do you lose deals?
It's a play on the strengths and weaknesses question. I'm assuming.
Yeah. You see, like, I'm really bad at negotiating. I fold immediately. Yeah. Or I need to get better at I don't know, again, discovery. And you see fairly easily the vulnerability with which to answer that question. Like it's pretty much an immediate no for me when people are like too detail oriented. Like,
red flag.
Yeah. When they're like, I'm just
noted.
I'm too committed.
Yeah.
I work too hard. Oh,
if I skip forward to, I've done my interview, we shake hands, I leave the room.
Yeah.
What do you see? What's the mistake you see a lot of your interviewees make?
They don't close, especially for senior roles. We're finishing the interview. I'm like, do you have any questions for me? Questions you're going to ask, very important. They ideally have to be related to your decision criteria for choosing a job, because I ask that. You know, what would make you, like, what are you looking for in your next job? How many interviews are you having? I'm asking the people, who are you interviewing with? Again, I'm more looking at, like, are they transparent?
Yes.
Are we going to build like a relationship of, I trust you, I'm going to tell you, I'm actually looking at this and that. How are you going to choose? So, and then most importantly is some people will do it naturally, like, any red flags? Like, thank you so much for seeing me today. Is there anything I haven't covered? Or do you have any, like, leftover questions? Like, how am I doing?
Wow.
Well, the candidates, no one does that, which is really annoying.
But that takes a lot of, that would take a lot of courage, I think, to almost acknowledge what's missed.
But we're in sales. If you're not asking me this question, I don't trust that you're going to be asking your buyers this question. And you have to ask your buyers this question. This is a sales cycle. Treat it as a sales cycle. And this is what candidates fail to do and perceive is the interview process is everything that happens around the interview and how you conducting yourself within the entire interview. So no closing question for senior roles is pretty much a direct no. Not following up. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be overthought. A quick, simple, was great to meet you today. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Looking forward to meeting you again next week.
It's all it takes?
It's all it takes. You know what? I spoke to a candidate yesterday. As I was closing the call, we're trying to poach her. And as I was closing the call, she went, I'm looking forward to coming in next week. Can you give me your phone number just in case, you know, I don't know, I get lost or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Here it is. Like, first candidate to ask for my phone number in like month. I'm like, great. And immediately after, like within minutes, WhatsApps me, so good to meet you today. I can't wait to meet next week. Like,
big thumbs up.
It's only when I got back home to sit down with my husband, have a glass of wine, I was like, I didn't even think about it, but that's what I'm looking for in a candidate. That's just, it's natural. She asked me my phone. I didn't even think like, oh yeah, nice, I could move.
Yeah.
No, I just like, it felt so natural. And she followed up on a WhatsApp so naturally that I didn't even feel like I was being sold on or anything. And I was like, that's what I need.
Did she get the job?
It's early stage, but
okay.
I mean,
she's made an impression on you, and it's nothing even to do with her CV or anything else. It was just those soft skills almost.
We haven't even entered a proper interview process because I'm reaching out to her being like, please enter an interview process. And she's already doing this thing. So I'm like, yeah. And it should be. And I don't even think she's been thinking about it. No. She's done it naturally. You'd be surprised. And I'm hiring now for a role and I can't find anyone. And you know what the crazy thing is I made a post about it on LinkedIn, and I pinned that post to my profile that says, here are the 3 things you need to do in a sales interview.
There you go.
And these 2, closing question and following up, they're the 2 first ones.
They're integral. I want to just get a sense, even if it's just a couple of questions about G2 and what you do. Just very quickly, headline, what is G2 for anyone that isn't familiar?
G2 is the largest B2B software marketplace.
Right.
So think about your Google review for your restaurant, right?
Yes.
Had a pizza at this place. You know, waiter was fantastic. The pizza wasn't so good. Well, same thing, but reviewing B2B software. So every single B2B software is on G2, and every single users of B2B software can go onto G2 and review.
If you're on there and you've got a good review, got a good rating, what sort of difference can that make for your brand, for your visibility, for trust in potential new customers?
Oh, it's huge. It's massive. It's voice of customer. It's validation by a third party. And yes, it's trusted because we moderate every review in the sense that we validate that they're indeed users of the platform, that they're real people, and it's not like any software company asking random people to put a review on the website. When you're in a competitive market, when I was selling SalesLoft, like super competitive, anytime someone was telling me anything about decision criteria, I would go and validate that with the specific reviews that we had on Sales Love versus the reviews that were on Outreach or Gong. It's huge in the selling motion to get people to come and speak to you or validate that you're the right solution, give buyers trust that they're buying the right software for their needs and within the decision criteria, and also massive for marketers, right? Because this is where you're going to have really big visibility in front of hundreds of thousands of buyers every day. And this is also, a way for you to have a third-party validation of how good you are and how you're positioning yourself on the market.
I want to ask you about the influence then at the moment with LLMs and how that specifically is changing the way almost all of us search and find these reviews and find what people are saying about X product.
Yeah.
You're on the other side. So I'm just curious what you're seeing play out there and maybe how you've approached it within G2.
Massive shift in the market. I mean, for a very long time, G2's positioning is we're the king of SEO. Like, if anyone is typing your software, some point, G2's going to come up with your reviews. Traffic's been down massively because people are just not going onto Google anymore. What they're doing is that they're starting the search onto a large language model. Hey, ChatGPT, I'm looking for a contact sourcing software that's going to integrate within Salesloft, that's very easy to use and has also good integration to Salesforce. And then ChatGPT is going to be like, well, you should check out Surf.
Yeah.
Because they fit into your decision criteria. Yeah. And when ChatGPT is going to give that answer, the most cited source is going to be G2, which is, for us, fantastic, because we went from, oh shit, traffic's declining, what are we going to do, to, oh my God, that's because actually large language models are crawling all over our websites. And guess what? Like, we're the most cited source for B2B software questions, which is fantastic. And now we're like, okay, let's analyze why we're so cited. Like, why do LLMs come and fetch information on G2 and Reddit and all of these other sources, and let's make sure that we double down on what works to make sure that we continue to have this very, very strong positioning, which means in return for every single brand which is represented on G2, that's a natural visibility for everyone, right? Yeah. Large language model love depth of information. Reviews, they love it.
Huge. Yeah.
And this is why they love Reddit as well, right? Because it's conversation. There's a lot of words. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of different opinions. So the large language model feel like within that source, they can gather so much different points of views that they can actually make an informed recommendation. It's super exciting. I find this whole thing quite amazing. I'm sure that between, the beginning of this podcast and the end of this podcast, things would have completely shifted, and definitely by the time you publish it,
you
might
joke,
be different.
But that's the speed at which it feels like so much of this is changing. That's why I asked the question, really, because I think, you are in the middle of it. It is a sort of marketplace for these reviews. It's fascinating as a marketer seeing how search has massively shifted this year and probably even longer, but through LLMs predominantly. What do you think sales and marketing teams are overlooking in 2025? What's something that they are perhaps not paying attention to?
I don't know if it's a direct answer to your question, but there's one thing I'm predicting. Sales used to be within marketing years ago, and then we started separating sales and marketing. We've had CMOs that were looking at everything, and then now we've got CROs and CMOs. I think that because the customer experience is blended, we've thought about on attribution between sales and marketing my entire career.
Yes, I was going to say, sales and marketing, certainly in my view of it, don't always get on.
Yeah, because I think we've separated budget and we've separated in some way targets, and therefore, yes, we're going to fight over, is this lead generated by sales because they went through Sales of Cadence, or are they through marketing because at some point they downloaded an ebook? And we need to stop looking at this. And I think I'm predicting that we're going to see more and more what's just happened at G2 actually. Eric Gilping, a CRO, is now president go-to-market and is encompassing marketing and sales. So we've got a unified vision of marketing and sales. This is my prediction, is that more and more we're going to see CMOs and CROs either reporting into a go-to-market president or a CMRO that's going to have VPs, and start thinking about, we need to have both efforts, outbound efforts, sales ed efforts, but with marketing touches, because a customer journey is very complex, full of many touch points, especially in software sales where it's very crowded, and we've got to do it all the time together. And I think we're too slow in general to accept that and just have a unified vision.
Well, watch this space and see if any CRMOs are appointed in the near future. Not another acronym is what I was thinking, but that leads me nicely to my last question, which is what's next for you then, Coralie? If there's a 5-year plan that you're looking ahead or working towards, or are you living more in the moment of right now?
Well, the big plan is to sell my husband's business and move to France and buy a vineyard. So here we go.
I mean, that is quite an idyllic 5-year plan. I think a lot of people would want to sign up for that. Is that a realistic ambition? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it actually is.
Sounds awesome.
But I love this job too much to completely stop it. So most likely, I'll find a way to keep working in the SaaS world, and maybe I don't know.
Then again, operating a vineyard feels like sales with wine, and that feels like quite good fun.
Exactly. And maybe there'll be like a little seminar business where you can get offsites for leaders and things like this. If we can, that's the plan A. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm still very ambitious, and I'll continue to do as to try and operate at the best of my capacities in what I'm doing right now, and. There's no ceiling. No. Especially now we've got new titles over CROs and CMOs, which are president go to market. So
if your vineyard needs one of those, sign me up, because I'll put that onto my 5-year plan perhaps. But it feels like a great place, I think, for us to conclude our conversation here today on Sales Rewritten. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex,
for joining us. I hope you found it to be a good experience joining us.
And don't need to do therapy anymore,
well, that's it. Third guest that we've had on now, and I think all three of you have described both careers as non-linear and these sessions as being a bit like therapy, and I'm counting that as a good thing. So that is it for our episode number 3 now of Sales Rewritten. From journalism to sales, it's been quite the ride, quite the journey for our guest today, Coralie de Robert. And if you've enjoyed listening to it, then please do rate our podcast. You can find us on Apple Music, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search @SurfHQ. You can subscribe or type in Sales Rewritten, where you'll find us wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Alex Wood. Thank you for listening. And remember this, our final point for today. Good sales isn't about closing faster. It's about showing up smarter. See you on the next one.